We're good? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Gonzalez. I am the chair of the Oversight Committee. This is our first time that we're televising this meeting, so I hope it all goes well and meets the folks' expectations out there at their homes seeing this. The idea was to allow the taxpayers to see firsthand how the Oversight Committee functions and how the money is being used, the taxpayers' money, with respect to the ad valorem. So with that in mind, we're going to start off by welcoming Dr. Gullett and her staff. I don't see Mr. Cummings, so be it. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. The vice chair's here. Okay, wonderful. And then we'll start off with a pledge. Everybody stand up. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. And if you may, please put yourselves on airplane mode or turn them off. Okay. Very well. All right. We will have a roll call. Ms. Jane Morley is not here today, so I will do that in her absence. Jennifer Hatchett.
Here.
Jane Morley, she's absent. Marianne Collins.
Here.
Gerthan Clover, he's absent. Michael Holloway, he's absent. Dinah Williams, she's absent. Barbara Brooks.
Present.
June Daly. Where are you, June? Oh, June, you're more welcome to sit up here. Please. Okay, Bobby Gunter. Susan Connolly.
She's moved.
Beverly Kuhn. Okay. And Neil McDonald. And yours truly. Okay. So we do have a quorum. With respect to our agenda, we have the acceptance of the minutes. There was a slight error on the last minutes because there was a member present that was marked absent. So with that in mind, you should have copies of the previous minutes and the one before that. So we'll look at the previous minutes to accept the fact that that person was present, and that was Miss Beverly Kuhn. Any objections to the approval of those minutes? Anybody want to present a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
Second there?
I second the motion.
Okay, very well. Minutes are approved. The most recent minutes, which was the last meeting, and again, I asked for a motion for the approval, unless anybody has any observations.
I would just note that on both the minutes, in the primary members present, my name is spelled wrong.
Okay,
It's spelled correctly within the minutes, but not in the,
All right, we'll fix that. Any other observation? All right, a motion to approve the minutes.
I move acceptance of the minutes.
Okay, second. All right, by Neil, very good. Hi, Diana, come up here. That's okay. All right. So the minutes of previous meeting have been approved with a slight correction to spell correctly Ms. Hatchett's name. All right, let's move on to serious business. Dr. Gullett. We're going to talk a little bit about a wrap-up of the end of the academic school year and where we're headed and so forth. So
Absolutely.
you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Gonzalez and members of the ICROC committee, it's great to see you all in this new venue. Thank you for your flexibility and working with us to provide more visibility to our community. So it's a pleasure to be here with you again today. And I think it's important to recap again that this committee serves to provide oversight into the spending from the referendum dollars. And we are always pleased to provide an update to the committee and to the public of the impact to our students. And so today, as always, you're going to hear the updates from our very dedicated team, representing many dedicated team members in our staff at all of our departments in our schools. And so looking forward to that. I do want to mention a couple of noteworthy things before I talk a little bit about the last quarter. Again, our vision is helping every student succeed, regardless of where they reside, regardless of the background of experiences they've come with. We are committed, I myself, my team, and the entire school board of Marion County are committed to helping every student succeed. And so we have launched a lot of effort in working on our basic skills and ensuring that we're equipping our students with the resources that they need to be successful in their pathway in their future. Most recently, as we're working towards getting to the top third in the state of Florida, and that is a very clear and transparent commitment in our strategic plan. Our data comes directly from the Florida Department of Education, and we are still at the 50th rank, which was exactly where we were before the pandemic. The highest we have achieved in the last 10 years was the rank of 42 in the state, which was last year. So we need to get back to that rank. That's the highest we've been in 10 years. So a lot of work to do. We need to continue those efforts, and we are committed to doing that. So when you think about the last quarter, we talk about how we finished the year and what we did in summer school, because the learning doesn't end in May or June. It continues through the summer. So again, this summer we had a robust summer school program. We had over 3,000 students participating. Very excited about that. We launched some new initiatives to engage our parents with welcoming our students back, engage MCPS, and opportunities for parents to learn about how to help our students, and again, those core skills. We also did a launch for kindergarten so that our students coming in for the first time to us are equipped with the readiness skills to know how to interact with their students. So we had hundreds of students participate in that, 5-year-olds coming to school to see what it felt like and to learn and be ready for the first day of school. Instruction starts the first day of school. So we're really excited about that. We've had a lot of professional learning opportunities this summer. What we've called ESSER Week has been ongoing all week. What that means is we're taking those federal dollars and we're ensuring that our teachers and our support staff have the resources and the skills and the opportunity to collaboratively learn together to prepare for high quality, high impact instruction every day. So really excited about that. You're going to see that wrapped into today. So because this is the last quarterly update, you're going to hear from the team as they come forward, and you know the format we always do. You're going to hear from those folks representing the curriculum side and the operation side, and you're also going to hear the finance side. So again, what we're doing, how we're measuring outcomes and what we expect that to look like, side by side with the money and how we're spending and tracking the spending of the money. So those will be side by side. You'll hear from our team. Again, as a reminder, before I have my wonderful team members come forward, school starts August 10th, which is hard to believe. So next week is pre-planning, and we are again looking forward to having everybody back to start our fall semester strong. And we appreciate your investing. One more time, again, this meeting, you've heard this several times, I want to, as your superintendent, invite you to come into our schools and see this work firsthand. I'm a big advocate for volunteers, and especially all of you, please come see this incredible work in action. And so, again, I thank you all for your support, and the feedback that you always provide us is always very helpful. So without further ado, Dr. Gonzalez, I'll turn it back over to you so you can move on with the agenda and hear from our team. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to stress to my fellow committee members and to the taxpayers that may be seeing this presentation that it does make a difference when the committee members are allowed to visit the schools. We see firsthand the use of the tax dollars, art, music, PE, all that stuff, of course, the professional development of the teachers, and I witness a city cop or a Marion County cop in each and every one of the schools, depending on its location. So that's all good. I can't say enough or stress enough about that. I take the security aspect very, very seriously. So kudos to the law enforcement agencies involved in helping the district. And let's hope that we don't have a situation like it happened in Uvalde recently, where some guy just walked in and massacred those kids, and the law enforcement just stood there, okay? We're gonna hear more about that case without a doubt. I just hope that it never happens here in Marion County, but it is a very, very serious situation in our society. I can't stress enough about. Okay, very good. I guess Ms. Boston Ellis is gonna bring us up to date with the money aspect.
Like Dr. Gullett, I would like to say good evening to all of you, and always thank you for your volunteerism. We do respect you for what you are doing for our district on behalf of our children and our staff. So as always, I just like to say thank you, and you are very much appreciated. So with that, we'll get started. Today, in addition to myself, there will be 6 other presenters from various areas: physical education, Charity Corneliuson, Kathy Ott for career and technical education, Aaron Martin for Media Center, and Joe Crowder, fine arts, which includes the art and music, Janet Biddick, professional learning and leadership and learning, and Dennis McFadden for safe schools. It really does take the whole village, and we are very appreciative of all their contributions. So just as a point of reference, I'll remind you that we are in the 2nd renewal of the referendum. It was voted and approved August 28th, 2018. It's effective from July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2023. The allowable uses of funds include reading, physical education, art, music, library media, vocational, to assist in helping us meet class size, retain state certified teachers, paraprofessionals, and school safety. School safety was added in the last referendum. As you can see, we have collections and expenses for the last 7 years. We just closed out the 21-22, and these are preliminary numbers, but they're pretty close. So for the last year, 21-22, we collected $23.8 million based on the ad valorem tax, and our expenditures were $20.9 million. So if you look as a cumulative view, From beginning of the 2015-16 year, we've collected $135.4 million, and we've spent $126.9. For the 21-22 year, again, we've received $23.8 million, which represents over 100% collection. You might be wondering why we would have over 101% collection. Sometimes these are taxes from a prior year that have been paid. And also, the law requires us to budget 96% of what we are owed. But sometimes we get additional revenue outside of that 96%. Our expenditures to date for the 21-22 year are $20.9 million, and that represents 97% of what was budgeted. Again, we have set up all of the programs by a project, and they have their own separate funds. We maintain these dollars separately, and this is just a reflection of how the programs are budgeted. Just a quick overview. The gold, which is about $9.7 million, that represents teachers and paraprofessionals. The other categories from physical education, vocational, media, art, music represents teachers and also the benefits associated with their salaries, as well as some funds available for materials, and with the vocational, there is some equipment that was purchased. We also have professional services, professional development for our new teachers, and last but not least, the new component of Safe Schools, which covers the part of the Safe Schools SRO costs, as well as things like door buzzers and cameras. Again, this is just a cumulative view by program of what we have spent. So these are expenditures by the various programs. And now we'll reflect on the fund balance. As I told you, these are restricted dollars. The beginning fund balance at 2021-22 was $5.5 million. And this was the carryover balance from the 2021 year. Our actual revenue, $23.8 million. Actual expenditures, $20.9 million. And this actually should say ending fund balance. The projected ending fund balance for the 21-22 year is $8.4 million. And you may wonder, and I try to remind you each quarter, that we like to maintain a fund balance, because we do not receive the tax proceeds until about end of November, 1st of December. So the fund balance is used to pay the expenditures that occur from July through that time. So I love to see pictures of the children, because that always reminds us why we are here. And the first category is class size. You may recall that there was a constitutional amendment in 2010 that indicated class sizes based on the grade of the student. At that time, we did not meet class size requirements, and we paid close to $2 million, because it was basically cheaper to pay the penalty than to hire the additional teachers that were required. Hence the referendum. And that's why we were so grateful to the taxpayers to support this, because then we were able to hire the additional teachers to meet the class size requirement. So at the end of the year, we ended up with 102 teachers. We had originally budgeted 75, and it was revised up to 105 in terms of budgeting. Paraprofessionals, we had originally budgeted 110. We revised the budget down to 101, and we ended up hiring 95 paraprofessionals. So that particular budget, the actual expenditures ended up being about $9.7 million, which included salary and benefits for those employees. Now we'll turn over to Charity Corneliuson to talk about physical education.
I have a question, Ms. Boston Ellis.
Yes, sir.
Based on an article written at the Star Banner, they mentioned something about COVID funds plus the proposed budget for next year. And I saw a figure something like $900 million plus. Did I read that accurately? And please explain a little bit more.
If you are inquiring about the 22-23 budget, our total budget is approximately $905 million. That includes all funds, general fund operating, revenue, and expenditures, the referendum, our adult education program, our capital projects, our debt service fund, our food service fund, and our internal service fund, which includes being self-funded for property as well as for health. And most of those funds are restricted. The majority of the dollars that have a little bit more flexibility are the general fund operating. And I believe that's a budget of about $442 million.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Diana, you have any comments? No? Okay. All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. I am very happy to be here to speak and share out a little bit of the great things that all of our physical educators are doing with our Marion County students. You know, when you get toward the end of the year, every year, it's a time of celebration. You wrap up all of your standardized testing and fitness testing for our physical educators and end of course exams and whatnot. And our coaches have a wonderful opportunity to celebrate with our students through fitness-based and movement-based activities. So things like field day, water day, you'll see some of these pictures. It's just a wonderful time for students to get together school-wide and across the county. When we were talking about you all coming out to visit, if there's an opportunity for you to come out during that time, it is so much fun. And it gives those students just really a chance to be outside of their daily setting and intermingle with all the other students and all the other classes and faculty and staff. We talk about play. This is one of my favorite quotes from Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. It says, "Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood." And I couldn't agree more with that. Students need to move, they need to socialize, they need to be with their peers in a structured but free-moving environment. The referendum money has been wonderful for physical education because while it does fund some equipment, what it really does is pay for those individuals who have that unique opportunity, in some cases, to build relationships with every student on their campus over a span of years. So if you think of one coach's impact on an individual, if they start in kindergarten, let's say, and stay at that elementary school for 6 years, they've had a really impactful opportunity. And that's something I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention. Thank you all.
She had some other fun pictures as well. Thank you very much. And so in between the presentations, I'll hop up and talk about the actual expenditures for that particular program. So as she stated, the physical education program funded 18 elementary teachers and also 23 PE technicians. And these are, if you think of support in the large classes. So that was really meaningful for our elementary schools to restore. So if you recall, prior to the referendum, we might have had a PE teacher that worked between two schools. And what the referendum allowed is now we have one PE teacher at a school, and in some instances there may be two depending on the number of students at that school. And also, although it's a small amount, each student at that school will earn $2. So if it's a 200 membership school, there would be $400 to help support buying balls and all the other equipment that is required in the physical education program. They did buy some equipment, but basically it was things to support their programs. So next we'll talk about the vocational, and Kathy Ott will come and make that presentation.
Good afternoon. I'm really excited to share with you some of the exciting things we have going on in our vocational programs. Just as a quick overview, we have over 65 high school programs spread throughout the county. And all of those high school programs have middle school programs that feed them as well. So we have quite a bit of vocational education going on in our school system. Pictured here are two of our newer programs that we were able to start through referendum funding. You can see the Equine Program at North Marion High School that actually kicks off this coming school year. We've been building up to it for a couple years now, and we're excited to start that program. Students in the picture are actually participating in the OBS equine sale in that photo. And also pictured there are two Forest High School students. They're in our new entrepreneurship program. It started about 3 years ago, and they're actually competing in a national business plan competition. Our programs in our high schools and our middle schools range all the way from culinary to automotive. So as you can imagine, it's very expensive to support those programs and keep them up to industry standard. We're really thankful for referendum funding for allowing us to do that with our students. When we talk about keeping equipment up to industry standard in technology, in vocational education, we're really talking about a lot more than just computers. We're talking about very specialized equipment that without referendum funding, we really could not purchase for our students to use. Here you can see some of our fire students participating in Career Day. They actually got to participate in a simulated fire that day using equipment that was purchased with referendum. And also there is ViStar Bank. This is a brand new marketing program at Bellevue High School. The students actually operate a bank right on campus. They serve the students of their campus. The students come in, create bank accounts, open checking accounts. And here they're hosting a reality day. So students from other classes came in, were given fake jobs, fake salaries, fake amounts of children, and then they were asked to figure out how to budget for those. So the banking, marketing students were able to help those students get a real reality check about what it costs to live in the real world. And here you can see two of our gaming and programming students. They just competed in a tournament, a gaming tournament. And also listed there, you can see some of the other programs that are supported through referendum. I'd really like to point out the industry certification exams. One of the goals for all of our high school students in vocational programs is to graduate with a industry level certification so that whether they're going out straight into a career or they're going to continue their education, they have the skills that they need to do that. And lastly, pictured here, we have one of our middle school health science or medical programs. Prior to referendum funding, we only were able to offer medical programs at 3 of our middle schools. Thanks to referendum, we now have it at 9 middle schools. Here you can see them working with learning life-saving techniques. So they're practicing CPR on the mannequins. Both the teacher units and all the equipment for those programs was supplied through referendum funding. Also listed there are several of the other unique programs that we started fully based on referendum funding. We did not have these programs prior to referendum. And that's it for me.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any plans to have a CTE tour this year?
Yes, we are hoping to open back up the tours this year, and I believe we've been discussing opening not just to the CTE programs, but to all of the programs supported through referendum, so you can see the arts and the other programs as well.
I remain a huge fan of the vocational program, and I've seen it firsthand in all schools except Donella High School. Wonderful. I just can't say enough about the teachers and the students and so forth, so kudos to you guys.
Thank you so much. We're really proud of our programs.
As Kathy mentioned, the vocational programs, we hire 17 teachers, 3 bus drivers or trip tickets between the schools and MTI, so that there is an opportunity for those students that do not have transportation to attend class here at MTI. There are some materials and supplies that are allocated to them, as well as funding for that equipment that she mentioned as well. And also some dues and fees which are related to membership in vocational programs.
There's quite a bit left remaining to spend in their budget.
Yes, anything that is not spent is rolled over to the next year.
Within the same area.
They're restricted, yes. I think their budget next year may be a little bit higher than this, based on the cost of materials and equipment.
Great.
So next, we will have Librarian Media, and in lieu of Aaron Martin, we have Jennifer Leeds stepping in for him today.
Good afternoon. Through the funding of the referendum, our schools have the much-needed support of a full-time library media specialist. These professionals are in the schools every day, building positive relationships with our students in order to properly evaluate their literacy needs, as well as facilitate the access of books that are not only aligned with state standards, but are also appropriately matched to each student's unique interests and their ability levels. Our media specialists are able to procure resources that expand upon classroom lessons and create learning opportunities in collaboration with classroom teachers to help achieve their individual learning goals. The value of a library media specialist is also reflected in the circulation data. For the 2021-2022 school year, our school library media centers had a total circulation of over 586,000 books, which is over 3,000 circulations per day on average, which to me is astronomical when you think about that. This represents a 36% increase in overall circulations from last year. Those figures are only intangible books. When we examine the statistics of our digital resources as well that are available through Myon, which is promoted and managed by the library media specialists at each school level, we support over 1.2 million books read this year, which is over 9 million minutes read to promote literacy in Marion County Public Schools. This past summer, we also had library media specialists in place at select sites throughout the district. Students who attended programming at these sites had access to the invaluable resources that were provided by a school librarian, as well as the school library, as well as a certified library media specialist. And again, as well as everybody else, we do invite you to come and attend any of our functions that are taking place in our school libraries across the district.
As Jennifer stated, the referendum supports 15.5 media specialists, and we have one media library assistant that the referendum supports as well. Their total budget was $1.2 million, and they have spent close to $1.2 million for the fiscal year 21-22. Again, including salary and benefits, purchase services, which could be range from licensing or things of that nature, materials and supplies, some equipment, and then some fees associated with memberships. Now we'll turn it over to Joe Crowder, who will do both art and music, and I will do the financial information after she's finished both.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Gonzalez and members of the committee. Thank you for your time. We have had an exciting end of year, and our students have gained some valuable experiences. We had our Superintendent's Art Show. This was at the Appleton immediately following the Young in Art Show that I spoke of the last time we met. The Superintendent's Art Show features one student from each school. And at our schools that have more than one teacher, each teacher selects their most exemplary piece to represent their program. And this year, the Appleton had the art show in one of their galleries, and it was spectacular. And you can see on the slide
that each student is celebrated and they receive a certificate and a family pass to the Appleton, and the works were on display for 2 weeks, and you can see in the gallery there how gorgeous that was. So we had a wonderful night celebrating our student artists. Also in art, I wanted to share with you that the City of Ocala and the Magnolia Arts Exchange have a student and emerging artist contest. And many of our high school students participate in this. But these two pictures on the left are very dear to me because the students challenge their teachers to participate that have not shown work professionally. And on the left-hand side, one of our Westport teachers actually won first place in her category. And on the next slide, we have our teacher from Vanguard with one of her students, and they displayed their art together. And it was a really neat night to have the students supporting their teachers as much as our teachers support them. And on the right-hand side, there is a state program called Arts for All. In Marion County, our exceptional students receive inclusion in special areas, which means they get to be with their peers during music, art, and PE time. And our teachers are asked to nominate exemplary students who are showing promise in the arts. And this year, Mr. Sapp from Wyomina had 2 students win for the state in 2 different months. There's one chosen monthly. And so we had an award celebration for this particular student. Okay. In music, we had honor choir and honor band. And teachers select the students and they build the choruses and bands based on the needs, whether it's instrumentation or voice parts. And you can see the middle school chorus on the left, and the high school chorus we didn't get a very good picture of, so I apologize for that. But their concert was at First Baptist because we needed a very large venue. And you can see the District Honor Band are at Forest High School. And those students got to spend 3 days with guest clinicians from universities. So they had professors come out and teach them the music, and then they had a beautiful concert. And I don't know if you're aware that the referendum supports all of our performing arts, which includes dance and theater. And this year we had the first annual dance concert, and that was right where you're sitting. And you can see that the students have costumes on. There were costume changes. It featured every one of our schools that has a dance program, and we're very much hoping to build our dance programs in the future. So make sure they called this the first annual, so you will be invited to the second annual. And I would like to say that since the Marion County voters said yes to the referendum, not only have we been able to hire classroom teachers, but we've also been able to provide art and music at every school K-12 since we've had the referendum. And the activities in the visual and performing arts throughout the year allow our students to also build soft skills, including teamwork, community involvement, responsibility, determination, empathy, communication, and creativity. So thank you to our citizens for supporting our students and school programs, and thank you to the committee for your service to our community.
I'll go back a little bit to the art, just to share with you that the referendum does support 0.5 of a program specialist in art as well as in music, 15.5 teachers, and 11.5 paraprofessionals, with a total budget of about $1.5 million. In music, again, the referendum supports 0.5 of a program specialist, 16.5 music teachers, 10.5 paraprofessionals to support those classrooms. And as Ms. Crowder mentioned, The secondary receives an additional allocation for music of $106,000. So their total budget is $1.6 million, and they spent just about all of it. Next, we'll go on to professional development, mentoring, and induction update, and that will be with Janet Biddick.
Good afternoon. I am excited to share a wrap-up of our year. As we've gone on this year, if you've been involved in these committees, you've seen we haven't spent a lot of money because we've shared with you all year that would come at the end. So we're excited to finally share that out with you for the year as we've closed up this year. So the Professional Leadership and Learning Department has continued to use the referendum funding to support our growth and our strengthening of our newest employees and our newest staff members, and that would be our novice teachers. And those teachers are ones with less than 6 months teaching when they enter our school district. So we have provided support for these people with a one-on-one mentor, which we call an instruction talent developer, and we have provided that to them for the entire year. So this referendum funding that's given to professional development specifically targets our mentor and induction program. So this year we have had 217 new novice teachers go through this program, and we were able to end the year with 191 of those teachers. So we had a little bit of a lapse with some of our teachers that might have moved or left or things like that, but we finally ended that year, so we are able to give you that number of where we ended. So we're excited about that piece. As we move forward, you can see on the next slide our instruction talent developers. At each school, we have a lead instruction talent developer, and they shared that they put in over 344 hours of professional learning at the sites across Marion County Public Schools. And our instruction talent developers, or our mentors themselves, put in 6,510 hours of mentoring that was provided to our newest teachers. Each year we love to survey our teachers, our novice teachers, our instructional talent developers, and our lead talent developers. And looking at that, this survey shows the areas that were most impacted by the support that was provided to these newest teachers. So the newest teachers, our novice teachers, shared that their mentors worked with them mainly in instructional engagement, classroom management, and lesson plannings. And those were the key areas. So when you see our budget slide in just a moment, we hope we see a lot more of that orange spent this year. We really worked hard to spend it well and in the right places. And that actually continued into June. We just started to close out because we were excited that while we normally get our newest teachers right at the start of the school year, we've been able to provide them staff development as we've moved through June, and now as we move into the new school year into July. So we welcome you at any point to come meet our newest teachers and join us in any of our site meetings or our professional development to support our lead ITDs and our mentors and our one-on-ones. Thank you.
Are you having any problems with recruiting new teachers?
So recruiting partially comes under my department, but it really comes under the HR department, so our employment service divisions. And I know that's been a challenge throughout the state of Florida. I can speak, I know from other states talking with them, it's a challenge all over the United States right now. So our employment service division has done just an amazing job with their recruitment fairs and all of the different pieces of that. So answer, yes, that's nationwide. There really is a shortage of teachers, but Marion County's doing a phenomenal job reaching out in so many unique and creative ways to help offset that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Biddick always laments not spending all of her money, but what is spent is well spent, and it rolls over to the next year to continue to support the novice teachers as needed. So her budget is approximately $462,000, and of that, they spent $375,000, mostly on, as she mentioned, the mentoring. I would call it a mentoring supplement, and then some licensing, materials, and supplies to help support our newest teachers. Our last program, but not least, is the school safety which continues to be front and center of not only our concern, but the concerns of school districts across the country. And our leader in that area is Mr. Dennis McFadden, and I'll turn it over to him.
Good afternoon, and thank you again for being here, taking this opportunity to have us speak to you in our different areas. We want to assure you, we want to assure our voters, as we see the smiles and the laughter, hear the laughter on the students' faces, as well as our staff and visitors, all the different programs you saw, those programs wouldn't be possible if those students, if those teachers, their parents didn't feel as though they had a safe place for those kids to be. And we here at Marion County Public Schools, just like other school districts across the state and across the country, we are doing our best to provide our schools with preventive measures first before something happens. And so we take great pride in what we're doing here in Marion County. We have a very great working relationship with our local law enforcement agencies, as you can see up here on the board, the Marion County Sheriff's Office, Ocala Police Department, and the Bellevue Police Department. We currently have 37 SROs from the Marion County Sheriff's Office in our schools, another 18 from the city of Ocala, and then 1 from the city of Bellevue. Our SROs make up a huge portion of the budget here, the Safe Schools budget. Roughly 67% of the funding is used for the referendum funding is about 67% of the total SRO cost. So it's a huge pot of money and funding that we use to take care of our kids and protect them in our schools. As you can see, these SROs are on our campus. We get them involved in whatever activities that we have. We try to get them to be encouraged. I mean, when I was a DARE officer, you're out there, you're giving high fives to the kids, you're developing that rapport, that conversation pieces with them, and roughly a huge part of our collaboration with them is students feeling comfortable and talking to our SROs and our school staff when there's some type of verbal threat. So that is probably well over 90% of how we get threats brought to us is usually through students in that working relationship and that rapport that they have with our teachers and our staff and our SROs. As you can see here, this is the camera system here. We're putting in door buzzers and cameras at all of our schools. We are pushing forward. As a matter of fact, we just got through talking today and over the past few weeks after Uvalde, how we can speed up the process, because we know it's something that takes some time, but we're looking and we're getting ready to amp it up and try to speed up this process, because we see the shortcomings of other districts and the shortcomings of what may happen in other states, and we don't want that to happen here. So we're going to do our best to speed up the process of getting in door buzzers and cameras, because we don't want our doors to our schools to be open. We're doing a wonderful job working with all the different departments, working hard to get it done, and we should be close. We definitely will meet all of our strategic goals, but again, we're just amping it up and getting everything done quicker and faster than ever before. The referendum paid for 5 schools to have cameras installed this year last cycle, and another 11 schools, door buzzers was added to them. So we're pushing forward. We're getting closer and closer to one day we'll be able to say that all schools have fencing, door buzzers, and cameras. And once that happens, we have to remember that cameras fail, they get old, they get outdated. So now it's time for us to start the process over again. And the referendum does its part by making sure that once we get the cameras in the schools and use them as protecting our students, that we have to keep it going year after year after year. And we don't want to get them in there to the point to where we can't afford to maintain them as years to come. Thank you.
So, Mr. McFadden,
Yes, sir.
I understood you right. Your project on cameras throughout the district is not completed yet.
No, sir, we're just about complete. And what we run into is when I should say, solve the money problem, but we got to where we got the funding, we run into labor issues and labor shortages. When we order a set of cameras, it may take us 6 to 8 months to get them. And what we don't want to do is purchase a whole bunch of cameras and have them sitting on the shelf because the warranty is running at that point. And plus, we're competing with districts all over the state of Florida, all over the United States, trying to buy cameras and this electronic equipment to put in the schools.
Are there any partnerships with the business community here in Marion County to offset some of the costs for that?
We don't have any, I'm aware of any current partnerships, but we do have PTA committees, groups that oftentimes want to help purchase the camera. But again, it's not really necessarily the funding that's the problem. It's more of the purchasing of getting the labor force to put the cameras in, as well as buying the equipment. Again, we can have the funding, but it may take 6 to 8 months. If I order them today, it'll take 6 to 8 months for them to get here.
One of the first schools that I visited, 4 years ago, I think it was N.H. Jones. I took a surveillance of the school around and noticed, of course, certain cameras positioned there. So when I walked in and the principal greeted me and so forth, we went and saw the other programs.
So what we try to do is we don't want to be specific in what schools have cameras.
No, but wait, let me finish.
Okay.
When we went around and I saw the programs, art, music, PE, and so forth, then we went to the principal's office, and I said, I saw that you have some pretty good surveillance.
They are. I'm
Yes.
watching you when you're in those schools half the time, probably.
And then he said, I said, how did you get it? He said, it was already here. I said, well, who bought it? He said, it was donated by some business people.
PTO.
Okay?
And what we do is, again, we work through our technology department. In our technology department, we make sure that we buy cameras that are going to be able to connect and we're able to do other things with them as we move into the future with technology. It's just not a Best Buy or Office Depot camera that we're purchasing. We're purchasing high quality equipment that's going to last longer, that's going to allow us to integrate other technologies with it to help us in the future.
I saw as we enter here, there's a body scanner, just like we see them at the airport. Are we doing any of that at the schools?
No, sir, we don't. But what we have is we have the capability of moving that around. It is a portable body scanner. It's portable, and we can move it from anywhere at any time we want to. But we don't have those at every school.
Is there control of entrances for each and every one of the schools? In other words, they go into one main entrance, or you have multiple entrances?
And that's what we do with our fencing. Once we get the fencing up, it creates what we call a single point of entry, and it forces everybody into the front office of the school. And once the school starts, it's school day, those outside fences and gates are locked, forces you to the front, and those schools that have buzzers, door buzzer systems and cameras, they're locked, and that way you have to buzz to get in. And the receptionist may ask you a series of questions. Who are you? What are you? If you need, what do you need? A series of questions, because you may not even need to be at that school. You may be at the wrong place, but then they'll buzz you in, and just know at that point, cameras are there, and law enforcement officers are on the campus to.
Your efforts are sincerely appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Doors are locked as well as fencing. Okay. Thank you.
As Mr. McFadden indicated, the school safety budget includes helping to offset some of the costs of the SROs, as well as purchasing door buzzers and cameras. For the 21-22 year, the total budget was $2.8 million, and the majority of that budget was spent as well. We will now open it up to any additional questions for any of the programs.
Any questions on my right? Yeah.
I have a question. On slide 6, it seems that the class size reduction number went down more than $1 million, which either means we have positions we still need to fill, or you have replaced some of the teachers that we had before with general funds. What would account for that number going down so significantly?
I'm trying to get there. Apologize.
Yeah, slide 6, general fund expenditures by program.
So just from a general response to your question, class size is looked at every year, and based on what school needs additional units, that is where they are placed. So there may be fewer units that are needed at a specific school. So that's why that number may go down. Also, if you will notice the paraprofessionals, about 3 or 4 years ago, that number went way up to, I believe, in excess of 200. And we are slowly but surely attritioning those units out of referendum.
Yeah, I was wondering, because if the referendum doesn't pass again, what's our plan B? In history, we had to fire a bunch of teachers, and I wonder, and that might be a question for Dr. Gullett, what do we do if by chance the referendum doesn't pass again?
Good afternoon again. Thank you for the question. The simple answer is there'll have to be some reduction in workforce. We will make every attempt to meet, as we always do, every expectation and requirement from the state, from the Department of Education, and I as the superintendent intend to do that. But outside of that, we will have to have a reduction in our workforce.
So if there's some counties that are able to manage without the referendum, then there's other counties that require a referendum to meet class size requirements and such. Are we being penalized that we don't have adequate funding, or why is it that some have adequate funding and others don't?
That's a really great question. There's probably more of a complex answer to that, but I'll try to be as simple in my response as possible. So when you look at the slide, actually we're still in the wrong slide, aren't we? Actually, let's stay on this slide if you don't mind. You asked about slide 6, right?
Yeah.
But I think back to your question right now, if you look at slide 9 and you look at the class size reduction, you look at what we're doing with the referendum dollars, we have 102 teachers, we have 95 paraprofessionals. If we took the referendum out of the picture and in the formulation of our staffing plan, we are not funded from general funds from our base student allocation to provide funding for those additional paraprofessionals, for example. We would be funded at our base student allocation rate, and so the additional support to have smaller class sizes and the additional support personnel in the classroom are not funded.
Yeah, I'm just since I got on this committee, trying to figure out how do we get over that hurdle that we don't have to keep asking taxpayers to tax themselves. How is it that we're not getting adequate funding, whether it's from our real estate here or from Tallahassee?
Well, the real estate is not going to be high forever, okay? We're about to hit a slump.
Well, that's another thing, presumably.
So, presumably, theoretically. So, again, we've mentioned this before. Plan B, you said workforce reduction. But what is a long-term, strategy to overcome this?
So, and again, how do we address this? That is why a lot of districts do have additional funding. Many of our districts in our state have additional funding and don't have just the base student allocation rates. That's the first part of that response. The second part is what's the long.
Well, where does that money come from? Where does the money come from? The additional money, where does it come from?
From different sources.
Federal, county, state?
Yes, do you want, Ms. Bostonellis is smiling at me. Correct, we have state, local dollars, we have federal dollars, we have Title I dollars, so all of those funding streams come to support, and so we don't have any additional dollars so you have funding that can go in and support certain other areas of the budget, and they can be replacement dollars. We don't have the ability to do that because this is all we have. You want to add in? Not sure if we.
I just wonder if we need to be lobbying our Congress people.
Well, Diana mentioned in one of our past meetings that perhaps the county commissioners should be approached to make this a more permanent tax, say 10 years or something like that.
If they're the ones that make that decision, yeah, shouldn't we have started that like year one?
I think we have to be very careful about what this committee
For sure.
does and what our responsibilities are. Our responsibility as a committee is the oversight of the dollars that we are that are coming in at this point. So, I think that's what we can, what we need to be discussing and focusing on. Obviously, if there wasn't a referendum, this committee doesn't exist. And so our job is oversight of the money that's coming in and making sure that it's being spent on the items that we've asked the voters for.
And thank you. We want to be responsive to your questions. The Florida Education Finance Plan is very complicated, which is why we have multiple work sessions even with our public about it. So I'm trying not to not answer your question, but it's pretty complex. The formula itself is pretty complex. We are happy to provide any information, but yes, I'm trying to stay within the lane of answering the question without complicating the issue. So, Ms. Bostonell, is there anything you would like to add?
Basically, the only thing that I would add is that our funding formula is complex. We have things that are requirements by law that are partially funded. Some things are not funded very well. An example for you is transportation. Our transportation budget is basically over $20 million for the 22-23 year, where we will be receiving $12 million. So there are different categorical dollars. So as Dr. Gullett said, there is funding, and we are very thankful for what we receive. But sometimes there's restrictions, and sometimes it doesn't cover everything. As long as I've been here, I feel like we've done the best job that we can with what we've been provided. And we would, appreciate any support you have in terms of lobbying with our legislators.
Thank you, Ms. Bostonell. I would also add, I think it's important here that safe schools is where we start, right? We are all committed to making sure that we have a safe learning environment. That is essential to even talk about the academic needs. And so we have to have that. And then beyond that, we have to make sure that our classrooms are protected. The money should always follow the students. It should be where the student need is. And so when you ask about specific programs or support, if we don't have referendum, we go back to the basics and say, what supports the classroom? What does the research show us? What are our outcomes? Where can we take a look at those dollars and see the impact on our student learning? And that is what we do every day, and we will continue to do. So if that's the case, we will continue to do that, and we will make those tough decisions. But we are incredibly grateful to the voters for supporting this, because one thing I was going to add, and if it's okay, if it's permissible, Dr. Gonzalez, at this point, I want to go back to a couple of things that were highlighted in our presentation today, such as with physical education, for example. Why physical education? Well, that is not recess, as you saw. It's structured learning. There are benchmarks associated with physical education that are being taught, and we need to teach them in a safe way. So providing enough teachers, ample personnel to make sure that that learning occurs in a high-quality way, in a safe learning way, is important. The vocational programs, we call those career and technical education programs. That begins really in elementary school. We have done phenomenal work in Marion County. We still have a lot of work to do. You saw some of our new programs that we are putting into place this year, but expanding that. We're expanding into elementary grades, middle school grades. We need to have access to our student learning across all around the 5th largest district in land size in the state. So if someone's in Denellen, they can have access to the program. If they're at Fort McCoy, they have access to the program, and in Silver Springs. So we need to make sure that the access is affordable to all of our students for learning. We also need to align our program offerings for course completion. That's data-driven. So making sure that a student begins a program, they can complete it, and when they have the certification, they're career ready. And so aligning to those needs, but also the changing needs in our community. The community is changing quite a bit. And so the industry needs are changing. They've changed, I think, based on what the data I've seen, pretty rapidly in the last 5 years. So we are working very closely with the businesses and the community leaders and on some partnerships to better align to make sure that we are providing the workforce needed for Marion County. So those are essential pieces. I also want to add one other item, if you will allow me to while I'm up here, the professional development and the learning and how essential that is with this referendum. Because the professional learning assures that our teachers, who have the greatest impact in student learning in the classroom while they're with us, is essential. And as our workforce is changing, we are seeing more and more alternative education pathways of our teachers coming to us. What does that mean? It means that we have more teachers coming to us from non-traditional education routes. We have folks that are come to us from mid-career changing. They may have come from business and they've decided they want to teach, and we're grateful for that. They've come from fields of study and science and mathematics. They were not afforded the opportunity to learn the pedagogy, the instructional strategy training. So it's essential that we're providing and equipping our teachers with the training and support to be effective in the classroom and equip them with the resources. So I just needed to add that in because it's important as we talk about referendum. There are multiple pieces to this that assure that our students have the most effective teacher in front of them and all the resources around them to be successful.
Dr. Gullett, I'm glad you brought that up because there's quite a concern and a lot of whispers in the community about what we're reading, that some of the teachers who may be hired, they will be hired because they are the spouse of a veteran. And we're also hearing about some of the instructors or the teachers who may be hired who have just basically almost a high school diploma, not even 2 years of college. And so could you just really speak to that, because it is a conversation and there needs to be some information about that, because people are concerned in the community that we aren't getting the best teachers. And I understand, I think I read somewhere there's a shortage of maybe of 175 teachers for the coming year. I don't know if that's accurate, but I did read it somewhere. And so could you just speak to the rumors that we're hearing, and how does that affect professional development when we're talking about we want to have the most effective teachers and we're getting teachers who aren't prepared, which I understand we are now opening it up to people who, as you indicated, may not have had the opportunity to get all the teacher training, and for different reasons they decided to change careers, and this happens, and I understand that. But somewhere we need to have a discussion about what is the truth and what is the myth.
Certainly, I will do my best to ask great questions there. We are committed to having the most highly qualified teacher, most effective teacher in every classroom. There's no negotiating, and that's a non-negotiable. So as far as you're referring to, there's some recent legislation that has come forward. We are still getting information on what that looks like, and so we will be sharing that with the community when we have more details on that. But there's two parts of this. The first part is ensuring that our teachers, as with all staff, are qualified for those positions. We are required by law to make sure that they meet those minimum qualifications. So there's that part. The second part is the training and support provided to those teachers. So regardless of where they come from, because we have very effective mid-career changers and staff that have come to us from, again, the expertise in a subject area. They're very effective in the classroom. We just needed to provide them, perhaps in some regards, some coaching and training and support, and again, the pedagogy. But as far as the recent news on the hiring of veteran spouses, I know you're referring to, we're waiting to hear more information on what that impact looks like and what the district will be required to do in that process. That's still very new to us, and so we will, of course, comply with what is expected from the state. And I believe that some additional support might be needed. Absolutely.
Any other questions on my right, on my left? Thank you, Dr. Gullett.
Thank you. Thank you all once again. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Before we end this meeting, let me just say that I will be coordinating with your office, Dr. Gullett, for upcoming visits in the fall. That's very important, dear heart, to both you and us in the committee. And any alibi, any other comments before we end officially the ICROC meeting?
As far as the ad valorem, the referendum being on the ballot, okay.
Let me just finish the meeting for the purpose of ICROC. I will turn it over to private citizen Jennifer Hatchett, who has some comments about that, okay?
All right, that sounds perfect.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
All right, motion to adjourn the meeting. Second by Neil. Very good. All right, Ms. Hatchett, the floor is yours.
Okay, now as